All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up the room here. All right, there we go. So thank you for being here today, Stephany.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's going to be a wonderful program. So let me go ahead and do an intro really quickly. You guys, please go ahead and share your information on chat. Have a discussion as we go through the program today. We've got some new attendees that have signed up, so I'm glad to see that. Stephany Lapierre, the CEO of TealBook, is our guest today, and she is an amazing female leader. I am really delighted to have her on our show. This is going to be a terrific one. Many thanks to Jan Peary and the Oklahoma City YWCA for sponsoring the program today. As you know, the YWCA supports women through some of the most difficult periods in their lives, whether they're facing assault or domestic violence. And the YWCA's mission nationally is to eliminate racism and empower women, which of course is what Purse Power is all about. We're going to be in webinar format today so that we can tape the program. And again, you can always find those on the Let's Share the Journey tab on our website, all of the tapes that we've done, and there's some amazing speakers there. We're going to provide a chance for everybody to get to know each other in person on July 30th. So please join us. This is a live session. You get to know each other and again, connect in some great ways. People are finding customers and partners and all kinds of colleagues. Purse Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women who make 30% of all purchasing decisions would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and if we could create a funding stream for the battered women's shelters in the process, we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So that's what Purse Power is all about. That's what we're trying to do. And the calls are to introduce you to people like Stephany here today and get you to connect with each other and grow and learn during this time. I want to shout out to my shareholders who are online. Thank you for being here. And let's go ahead and get started. So Stephany, of course, is the CEO and founder of TealBook. And she is a highly coveted supply chain thought leader, one of the most influential minds in emerging data technologies. She's also been recognized as one of the top 100 most influential women in supply chain, and her company TealBook has been named a top 50 company to watch by Spend Matters, and they won the Cool Vendor Award, I love that title, by Gartner. Prior to TealBook, Stephany spent 10 years building a successful strategic sourcing and procurement consulting firm, focusing on large-scale sourcing optimization projects. Given her experience and visibility to the data issues that cripple procurement, she's made it her mission to deliver a trusted source of supplier data to an ever-growing eProcurement space. Currently, TealBook is the only big data company that provides a self-enriching, self-maintaining mechanism to fix enterprise supplier data. So that is terrific. And of course, we want you as business owners to be in her book. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We all want to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about you and your life and career and how you arrived at this place.
What time do we have? So thanks for having me and for the opportunity to share my experience with other women. I'm from Quebec originally. I am French speaking. So if you detect a slight accent, that's where it's from. I left Quebec when I was 18 to become a ski instructor on the west coast of Canada. Fun fact, I was a ski instructor with our now Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, so it kind of dates me on my age. I always aspired to be an entrepreneur. I was very much surrounded by entrepreneurs my entire life. Actually, my grandmother had taken over Pepsi after my grandfather had passed away when he was about 60. And she was about 20 years younger than him, had 3 kids. I never worked a day in her life and decided to take over the Pepsi manufacturing and distribution in Quebec.
Wow.
And so I watched her being a very powerful, influence, and also being very feminine in the way that she just conducted herself and the way that she put herself together. And even in the way she was leading, she was very much a woman in a very male dominated space. And I attended, endless picnics and hockey tournaments because Pepsi was sponsoring so many of these activities. I got to watch her in a public setting. And so that definitely influenced me. And I went to high school with all friends that are now entrepreneurs. So there must be a bug around me of people that all want to start their businesses. And so I knew I wanted to start my own business. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I did start a small business before going out west that I had launched when I was 18. And so this business was organizing corporate events for companies. And then I ended up selling this to go out west, became a ski bum, went to university, learned English. And my first work experience was in a startup. So I got the bug of a company that was growing really fast. I was employee number 4 or 5, and we ended up becoming 50 within about 24 months. And then I worked for a brief period of time for a pharmaceutical company, both in sales and marketing, in a very competitive space. And that kind of triggered the need for innovation. How do you create competitiveness? How do you use innovation to really differentiate your business? And I had a short stint in a data company, so it gave me a bit of a taste of the power of information and data and the value of it for organizations. Ultimately, I ended up moving to Boston in 2006 and went back to my first company to build out their US office. So left Canada to go and be in Boston, and did that fairly successfully for 3 years, worked with large Fortune 100 companies and built that organization out. And at one point in my career, I got pregnant. My husband was traveling all over the world in his global role. I was traveling a lot because of this role. I was building this company, and decided that one of us needed to be more grounded. And I had a moment in my life where I wrote down the things that I loved and wrote down the things that I want to avoid. Like if I was to craft the perfect job for myself, what would that look like?
Good for you.
I'm a huge believer, if you put things down on paper, they come true. And in that moment, my business before TealBook came to life. It was a company called Matchbook, which still exists, and I don't operate anymore, but I do own it. And that business was to help companies find innovation. So my business was basically initially a matchmaker. Like, how can we solve business problems through innovation? And a lot of the innovation came from suppliers, from companies who were continuously challenging themselves to create more value to their customers. And so for quite a few years, I was able to work across multiple functions to help either find suppliers that were more innovative or bring suppliers together to brainstorm and develop innovation. And the outcome was always very consistent and very positive. And suddenly my customers who were, seeing some similarities between procurement and what we were doing from an innovation perspective as a way to help us shape what they called strategic sourcing, which was a new kind of spin-off of procurement by aligning the goals of procurement, which is typically known for savings, and be sort of the keeper of spend, to the business that is spending money, that's trying to invest in the place that's going to provide the best return. So you have this huge gap between the two, and strategic sourcing was there to be more strategic in the outsourcing sort of requirements that would enable the business. So my company did that for about 9 years, worked across large companies building strategic sourcing. And over those years, a lot of my customers went and joined fast growing, mostly biotech companies that were raising quite a lot of capital. They had their phase 2 or phase 3 data to launch their first drug globally, and had never built supply chain in their life because they'd come from these big pharma companies. And suddenly my consulting firm was pulled by these executives to help them initially source, everything. I call their grout to the kitchen sink, because they needed everything, to suddenly kind of building the blueprint of what does it look like to commercialize a first global asset, and all of the suppliers that you need across from all the way from research and development to clinical to manufacturing to distribution to logistics, et cetera. So that's where my experience came from. When you're growing a company really fast, you're not thinking about saving money. So suddenly procurement changes. It changes to be a function that increases operation and financial efficiencies through spend optimization. And while making sure that people are able to make decisions faster, that they're not getting the organization or they're signing things they shouldn't be signing, right? And they're able to move as fast as possible. And so that's where all of this experience landed me to think that we were coming into a place where software was the only way to collect and fix information on suppliers that these organizations were ultimately sourcing and engaging with and working with. And I saw a huge gap in the market on how information was being collected in a way that it would give the organization visibility. And so as we progress, we saw companies, imagine, dealing with thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of suppliers globally, the sheer amount of information that you need to collect, maintain, distribute, leverage so that you can make better decision. And that data just didn't exist. Not in a way that was high quality, not in the way that was actionable. It just lived in software that were disparate. And the architecture to connect those softwares, to bring those connectivities, to give you better visibility of this amazing asset, which is all these suppliers that you do business with and how you can leverage them, it didn't exist. And I became really convinced that the only way you could solve for this huge gap and also make sure that the vision of spend optimization or supplier optimization became truly beneficial to the enterprise, it had to be through a data platform that enhanced the data, that distribute the data across systems, and ultimately gave a really complete, insightful view of all the suppliers that you do business with, and even the ones that you should be considering to meet all kinds of use cases. So that's where my journey, we're now 6 years into TealBook. We've raised $22 million so far. We grew just since last December from 30 employees to just over 80. We're going to be over 100 by the end of this year.
Wow, congratulations.
So, there's a lot in between that, and I'm happy to unpack, but that's, we've, the vision that started 14 years ago, really started to materialize, and now the market is catching up and we're growing up incredibly fast.
Your timing is impeccable. It's amazing. All right. I was going to ask about your vision. You kind of gave us an idea of that. Has your vision changed from the beginning, or are you staying right where you were in terms
of the
vision's
never changed? How do we deliver better information so that the enterprise can have consistent data across their system, and ultimately getting employees the information they need to do their job, right? And they're looking they need suppliers to do their job, either to manufacture something or a service that will enable them to get to their customers, whatever it may be. You need suppliers. And if you're blocked by engaging the right suppliers because of processes, it just doesn't work. It conflicts everything about speed and agility and innovation. And so my vision's never changed, is how we were building the technology, finding product market fit with something that was never sold to the market before. Like TealBook didn't exist. A data platform that we've built is not a technology that was even available 5 years, 6 years ago. And so you now have to educate on AI, machine learning, and on how do you buy this data platform, and why not software versus data platform, or why software plus a data platform. So a lot of education, a lot of investment in our technology up front. But luckily for us, one, the digital transformation is accelerating, and our customers are challenged to get better information. The requirements of the markets are changing, and COVID was a huge accelerator, because our customers had spent millions of dollars in their systems and still did not have the quality and the access to the information they needed to ensure business continuity, to pivot their production, even just ensuring that they would, find PPEs that met requirements that could keep their employees safe, so that they could keep, be in business. And so suddenly this trigger in the market completely came our way. And so that's why now we're accelerating. We've raised capital 2-3 quarters ahead of schedule last year, and we're already getting ready for the next round of funding.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. And of course, we want you doing business with women-owned companies. And driving business to them. So that's fantastic. All right. So I was interested in the fact that you're on several different advisory boards. You've been highly successful. You're doing great 6 years into it. What do you think about advisory boards? Should entrepreneurs have them? How do you create them? What do you use them for?
Oh, 100%. You can't do this alone.
Yeah.
And I do mentor quite a few female tech founders, and there's a very similar trait in how women tend to take on more risk by doing more themselves for a little longer than they should. And so, and I was one of those people. I started TealBook on my own. no initial funding, bootstrapped it in the earlier days. And it's really, really hard, especially when you haven't done this before. Yes, I had been an entrepreneur. I had a successful consulting firm, but tech is very different. Fundraising, I never raised capital or needed to raise capital in my consulting firm. I made money. I hired more consultants or more employees, built out my business organically. This was very different. I needed to invest up front to be able to build a platform way ahead of even getting revenue in the door. Mm-hmm. And so the learning curve was incredibly steep, and it was very lonely. Like, you're doing something, you're like, what am I doing this for? I have a very successful consulting firm. I have 3 kids, like, who I'm trying to prove this to. But once I made the commitment, and I had so much conviction in the idea and the need for the market, that, I gave it my all. But you can't do this alone. So finding people, and the people change along the way, like finding, and I would hang on to anyone that would give me time. And I would ask, right? I would go on LinkedIn and literally contact people and say, I'm launching this business. I would love to pick your brain. I know, would you spend half an hour of your time to talk to me? Mm-hmm. And it was never, like, most of the time there's no agenda. It was mm-hmm. just like, if there's one nugget I can take out of our conversation today, that would be great. And then suddenly you kind of see the people that are really bought in, that they understand your vision, that they get behind. And so those are the people that, as long as you continue nurturing those relationships, and hopefully it's not just one-sided, but sometimes it is, because you're just so hungry for information and putting the pieces of the puzzle. As I've matured, my advisors are more formalized in some ways. Of course, I do have some that are still more cheerleaders, I'd say, than advisors, but I start identifying people that I have regular, meetings. Like, there's a few advisors I meet once a month or every couple of weeks, and it's to tackle certain things, that it's go-to market, that it's on the technology, that it's I've got a CEO coach that I spend time with. More understanding what's some of the gaps, what can I do to get in front of it ahead. And I have a coach who's built a couple of companies, who's been a sole founder of those companies, who have done very well, and in some cases not so well. So learning from him is on the mistakes is as important as the success.
Sure it is.
And in my company too, we have a group of thought leaders, advisors that we met monthly. We're now moving to quarterly, just because monthly things are happening so fast. But these are all thought leaders in our space that are very well balanced in terms of supply chain, procurement, thought leadership. And it's just a great opportunity for my team to have a platform where they can ask questions, they can stay on top of industry trends, they can share content, they can leverage them for content and things like that.
That's really good. So how do you attract them to work with you longer term, beyond just a board seat? So have you got an advisory board and a regular board?
Yeah, so my board of directors is a bit different. So the composition of that is my investors. So we've done a few rounds. I've got 3 board members who are investors: my seed investor, my seed extension investor, my Series A investor, and then I have independents. And my independents are, it's kind of interesting how I chose them. One, I want to have a 50-50 on my board. So I do have 50% women, 50% men. Mm-hmm. I wanted independent that were going to be, smart, experienced, pragmatic, and really had my back. And so I had my husband on my board at the beginning, and we decided to move him out of the board to replace him with an independent. So imagine you're moving your husband, right?
Yeah.
Who's your trusted partner.
By the way, honey, I'm kicking you off the board.
It's really hard to, like, how do you choose someone like that? Because ultimately I report to the board, right? So my relationship with the board is very important. And I wanted them to, to be there for me as support, and also be critical. Like, I need to grow as a CEO. We need to grow as a company. So I want a fair amount of tough love or constructive feedback, so that I can make sure that we are continuously moving forward. And one of my board member, we had a lot of people were interested in the story and wanted to be part of it. And I had some big personality and very influential in the community. And so I decided one day that was a few years back, to bring them all together and called it a strategic session. Like, we know we want to review our go-to-market strategy. We would love for you to attend this session so that we could get your input. And the executive team was there as well. And, you know, it was this wild 2-hour session with some big personality throwing some really big statement around, like, you should just buy the yellow pages or whatever it may be. That, okay, if you're going to take an idea that's totally out there, it's fine, but it can be distracting as well if it's not well thought out. And so kind of navigated that a little bit. And then Donna DeWinter, who's the board member, was there. I had met her at an event with, I think it was PwC or Deloitte.
I've heard of her. Yeah.
She's the COO at Q4. She was CFO at Vision Critical and other companies. And she just sort of, you know, she was facilitating naturally, and she got everyone back on the right page. And she articulated not only the value proposition or position in the market, but our go-to-market strategy in such a poised, calm way. And so I knew it was her. And I took her out for coffee. I remember being so nervous. It was like a blind date, like that first date. And I asked her if she was interested in becoming more involved. And she said, yes. So would you want to be board level involved? And she said, yes. And so I was, you know, over the moon. And I remember one of my investors like, sign her quick. So she's been with me for three years or so. Mm-hmm. And she's the one that I call on, you know, like, so if there's more operational kind of types of challenges that I need to better understand from a financial perspective or operations, I go to her. And then my second independent was someone I met over lunch a couple of years ago in New York. He was very experienced in data companies. He had been an operator, an investor, board member of several companies, and been highly successful. And it's just funny, I was emailing my accountant, who his name is Marty Karen, and this is Marty Kahn. And so I sent a note to the wrong Marty, and then that's how we reconnected. And we started chatting, and we're going through some challenges. And he just said, why don't we meet once a week and just work through the challenges together? And I kind of knew, I'm like, if he's that interested in what we're doing. And so eventually when the board was asking me to bring another independent, I approached him, and he's been phenomenal. Like, he attends our executive meetings. He's very involved in a way that when we need him, he can jump in and provide wisdom and balance with his perspective, which is, you know, years and years and years of knowledge and building data companies. So anyway, hopefully that was not too much details, but that board is key, because, you know, they are providing guidance as we go, and they're keeping us accountable, right, to the things that we're delivering. And I'm very fortunate. I have a fantastic board, and they tell you this when you start a company: make sure you choose your investors properly, make sure you choose your board members, because there's some boards that can go sideways. Yeah. And I could have not chosen better. I have an incredibly smart, you know, supportive board, and even they would say it's their favorite board to attend, which is, you know, it's a great sign of a good, well-balanced, productive board.
Congratulations. That's awesome. I mean, another thing that I do is 20/20 women on boards, now 50/50 women on boards. And I know that there may be women on the call who want to get on boards. Do you have any recommendations for them as someone who's brought on board members?
Yeah, I'm actually, you know, not today because we've got too much on the go, but eventually that's where I can see myself play a valuable role. And so I started to network with the women in fund financing and some of my advisors. And I was invited to be on a board recently of a public company, and I turned it down just because the time, I can't commit the time right now. And just from an optic perspective, like, my business really, you know, we've raised a lot of money and there's an accountability. So I didn't want to get distracted. But I definitely would like to do that probably after the next round, when things are, you know, we've got more stability and more predictability in our business. It may be an opportunity for me to get more involved on boards like that. I think networking, there are some, I think you can take some courses to be on board that kind of sets you up, and then opens also opportunities to sit on boards when they're looking for women. There's a lot of boards looking for women. So it's a time to put your name out there and show interest. And what I'd say is be an active board member. Like, don't be passive. If you're going to do this, commit fully, be there for the founder, ask them what they need from you, and make sure that you have the time and the capacity to fully commit and bring value. If you don't know the space, or you don't think you can bring as much value when you're looking at the composition of the board. I think that's really important. And then make sure you like the people you're going to sit in a room for 3-4 hours or go through some tough times and making some tough decision at some point. And so you want to make sure that you meet the other board members and that there's good chemistry.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. All right. So since you do advise other women, you mentor people, do you see women founders as behaving differently than men when they're starting and growing their businesses? And do you think we have some innate strengths that we should capitalize on as women?
Oh, yeah. I do think that, and I hate this because I'm completely generalizing, but I do, as I mentioned before, think women entrepreneurs tend to put more on their own shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I'm referring probably a bit more in tech, where the sooner you can build a team, the sooner you can raise capital, mm-hmm. like the more likely probably you're going to be successful, and then you're going to know if it's going to fail or not faster. But as women, we tend to, I've seen women remortgaging their house. I've seen them like 2 years in and they're drowning and they're still trying to raise money and trying to do it all is just not, like, it's not realistic. I did it. It's nuts. Like, don't ever do that. That was the loneliest place you could possibly be. And so I'd say find the team as fast as possible. In one of my first round of funding, I had won 6 customers. I was running out of money because I had really bootstrapped initially. I had got an angel investor, and we can talk about that story because that's pretty incredible. But an angel investor who had given me some capital, but now we needed more money. And mm-hmm. I had about 3 months to hit the wall and run out of cash, which was not an option. And so I started fundraising, and I met, not knowing anything about fundraising, about the stage of the funds, the maturity of their fund. Like, I knew nothing. I just went out and started meeting every possible investor. The learning is fantastic, but no one needs to go through this. There's like a few steps you can skip. But I remember this one investor was like lonely ranger there. Like, you're all doing this on your own. Like, you're not going to raise capital doing this on your own. You need a team. And I was like, well, I need capital to hire the team.
I can't afford them. Yeah.
And then he said, well, you're not going to raise capital without a team. And I remember feeling so defeated. I left that meeting, going almost upset at him in some ways. And then taking a step back, and I was like, he's right. Like, I kind of stepped outside of my own body, looking at myself, doing all these things, and the amount of risk I'm putting on myself to ask investors to put money on me. What if one of my kids gets sick or something happens to me? Like, all this, right? Like, I'm not mitigating the risk profile. I could have the best idea in the world and win 6 customers. One was Biogen, like one of like a $60 billion market cap biotech companies. Like, it was not like I landed, a mom and pop shop. I had landed real enterprise and that saw value, but I could not raise money. And it's at the point where I was like, I need to bring the technology in-house. That was the other feedback I got, because I had a consulting, like a group that was outsourcing, building the initial version. Like, well, if you don't have the technology in-house in your technology company, no one's going to put money in your company, right? And that was really good insight.
Yeah.
And the other piece, like, if you don't have a team, like, you can't do this alone. Like, how are you? Like, you need skill set across the board to execute. It's not just about the idea. And so that's how I was, really, really fortunate to have found my CTO at the time, Jeff. And then he came with someone who had just exited from his own software company, interested in joining as COO. And then that allowed us right away, the investors that were excited about the idea, they bought into the vision. They liked me, and they felt that I came from a place of experience, having worked in this space and understanding fundamentally the problem that I was solving. But now I gave them the confidence that now I had the people with me to execute, and we're able to close. I'm trying to remember if it was like 2 million at the time, but that was a really, really important learning. I do think women in some ways, we also tend to be very humble, which is great, but not always appropriate. And so learning how to articulate the value proposition of your company and getting the confidence to tell other people that they're not investing to help you grow, right? They're investing to make money, and that they should be lucky to put money in your company because they're going to get a return. Like that's a whole mind shift in its own. And I remember hearing that, I was like, I need to reposition it. And I had this guy, this young, you know, white guy telling me like, well, you need to be cocky. I'm like, like I'm looking at you versus me. Like I'm not cocky. I'm not that way, but I had to find my version of confidence. And I remember when I hired our now chief strategy and revenue officer, that was 2 years ago. We were just in the process of raising that seed extension. We ended up raising 5 million in that round. He joined, and within a week, he was talking to investors, pitching them, and they were like hanging off their chair, like so excited. And I was like, what just happened? Like, he articulated the story with such excitement and conviction and how big it was. And it was the same story I had been telling, but he told it differently. And then I had to take that and spin it for myself, personalize it to my voice, and finding that voice was really key. And now getting investors excited. The conversation with investors now is completely different. We had 15 funds line up in our last round that couldn't get into the round because we didn't have enough room.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Building momentum, showing the confidence, building that trust and the excitement that, hey, we're growing, we're on something really big here. And we want to get to know the investors ahead of time, because if we're going to hit these milestones, which we believe we will, we're going to start the process. And we signed the term sheet within 4 weeks of launching the process. And some investors just couldn't, like, they had to go through their own process. They just couldn't make the process, or were trying to put a check in and we didn't have enough room. And so we ended up doing a secondary to allow our major investors to maximize their pro rata. And we ended up getting a strategic, which was Standard & Poor's Ventures. And we felt strongly that they should come in. But again, you know, going from the early days,
yeah,
humble, you're answering questions with, you know, lengthy responses to, feeling like they should invest in you because you want to grow your business. Like, that's the traits that I see in women taking too much on their back, or even giving too much to someone else. Very early, they feel like someone else, maybe it's their husband, maybe it's someone else that they've met, and they want to give equity typically because it's the way that they think it's the cheapest, but it's actually expensive things, you know. So hang on and be tough on equity that you're giving up, and give it over a period of time. It's a 4 years. It starts after 1 year that it's going to kick in. You want to make sure that these people are with you for the long run, and that you're not having people on your cap table that after 6 months, it doesn't work out. But as women, sometimes we think there's a savior. There's someone that, well, you must know better because he's done this before. To come to a realization is like, what does he know that I more than me, right? And to find that voice inside to say, I can do this. What, I look at all these CEOs, they had doubts. They didn't know, they didn't have all the answers, right? But they've been successful. And so I can do that. It's following your instincts, like finding that voice, following your instincts. And what I've learned over time is I'm actually right a lot of the time. And so it's just how the message is delivered, how you build the team, all these things really, really matter.
Wow. All kinds of bells are going off for me, just for reference. How did you attract those 2 people on your team when you didn't have a lot of money?
Yeah, that was my question too. Well, it was on the vision, right? Again, my conviction around the opportunity. Now, my opportunity this is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, and there's not that many of those generally in the world. There's more and more unicorns, but in Canada itself, to have such a global opportunity that's really network effect, and we're talking about, every single enterprise in the world has data issues and they need suppliers. And every software that's being sold to the enterprise needs better data. So we had these network effect opportunities. So it was really selling on the vision and them becoming part of that, right? So there's equity. So for sure there's equity. And then the fact that once we raise the round, there'll be salaries. They actually ended up investing. So they put their own capital into the round as well. So that gave them more accountability to, and it gave optically for the investors the confidence that these guys were for real. They're putting money, where their mouth was, and that they were.
Yeah. Oh, very, very good. Thank you so much. All right, you guys, be thinking of your questions. Please put them in the Q&A block. I'll ask one more and then it's your turn. All right. How about diversity and inclusion? We talked about that a little bit. You care about that. Can you talk about it within your business and beyond, particularly the state we're in right now as a country and a world?
Yeah, so I wear a couple of hats when it comes to diversity inclusion. One, I have 3 girls. So my daughters are 8, 11, and 13. And I want them to know that whatever they put their mind to and whatever they're passionate about, that they can be successful. And at the end of the day, you just have to be happy, right? Find that happiness, and success can mean very different things. So I think about them and their future and the opportunities. As a woman founder, I'm very intentional about diversity and inclusion within my own team. And from a minority, like a minority, just generally, not gender, I'd say we're probably 90% diverse, right? Around all the different nationalities. And
Great.
It's happened because, one, in Toronto, it's pretty diverse, and a big portion of our team, especially engineers, operations, customer experience roles are here. And then our marketing, sales partnerships are now in the US. But it was very intentional to make sure that it's well balanced, and that we are, putting a focus on hiring the best person. And, very naturally, we have a lot of women in our team. So we're 50-50 in gender across the company. We've got almost 50-50. We just hired a CTO that's a man, so it's unbalanced us now. We're not quite 50-50 anymore, but the leadership team and our board is 50-50. So again, as an organization, how do we continue being intentional about this? And then lastly, in our technology, our customers are making big commitment to diversity and inclusion. And it's always been important, but it's becoming, since COVID, like so significantly more important to the boards, the shareholders, the executive team, and it's gone, it's being pushed all the way down to how we're going to operationalize this. And with our technology, what differentiates what we do is we go out, use machine learning to, typically machine learning is used to automate what people are doing. And over time, as people use it more, it becomes smarter. So we're using that on the application, but in the supply chain procurement space, it's not like consumers where you have millions of people engaging with the application every second of the day. And so that use of machine learning is much slower. The way that we view technology is to go out and identify across hundreds of millions of different data sources what qualifies to be a B2B company. What about that B2B company is interesting, is valuable, useful, accurate, and then we create what we call a universal supplier profile for every B2B company in the world.
Wow.
And one of those attributes, one of our customers, who's a large Fortune 100 pharma consumer packaged good company, challenged us, is that we've been doing supplier diversity for a long time. Could your technology help us identify suppliers we do business with that we just haven't caught in our reporting? Because when you're thinking about this many suppliers and you're waiting for suppliers to come to a portal to put their certificate into one of 500 or more portals, the majority just don't do it.
Sure.
And so we use our technology to say, hey, let's see if we could find certificates. If we could read the certificate, we could classify them and unify it back to this profile. And we're able to come back. So we had asked them, what would the success look like? And if you could find 50 to 100 additional small and diverse businesses that we didn't catch in our prior reporting, it would be a huge success. We came back with 1,600.
Wow. In
10 business days, our machines were able to pull and find 1,600 companies that should have been reported, that was not reported, that met their requirements. So we're talking about like a huge impact, right, on their diversity spend. And since then, we've really expanded that offering to allow our customers to have more accuracy of their diversity reporting without having to invest so much in infrastructure. They're just uploading their vendor master. Obviously, we don't share the vendor master. It's not shared with customers or anybody else. They get their report that's accurate. They get the classification. They even get the certificate as part of that within the platform. Then we give them how many suppliers look like they should be certified, but we can't find a certificate. And shockingly, only 5% of businesses that meet the requirements for small and diverse are certified.
Absolutely.
So 95% of businesses that should be certified are not. So our customers can now identify these companies we have the contact information, we have the mechanism to reach out to them. And we've built with our clients in the VA and the SBA a process that would allow suppliers to self-certify at no cost, and it takes 20 minutes. So suddenly our customers who are large banks, pharmaceutical companies, mining companies, retailers, higher education, are able to invite these suppliers to self-certify, and they'll recognize that because they want to bring the pipeline of innovation in small, diverse businesses. They don't want to put the burden on the suppliers to have to spend thousands of dollars to get certified. And they know that the ROI of these certification, what we've heard, is 5 years. Imagine like you're going to, conferences, you're connecting with a diverse person at Bayer or J&J or whatever, and then it's only that person that gets to know you. It goes into a database that no one really leveraged because it's not smart enough. It doesn't get in the hands of people. And then suddenly you build this relationship. The person now is not there anymore. So now you have to build a relationship. Like it's just this like crazy world of inefficiencies. All it needs is how do we identify these companies, and then our platform can be integrated into an RFP tool that the customer is already using. So if they're writing an RFP, they can just punch into TealBook. They can identify their existing or new suppliers that are small and diverse by similarities to the ones that they do business with, include those companies into an RFP, punch back in, and then launch the RFP. And the other way that they can make an impact is that their suppliers are spending money with small and diverse businesses. And they can ask their suppliers to report their own spend. And a company like J&J or Pfizer, whoever, can take that spend and they can report it as part of their requirement.
That counts too.
That counts too, but a lot of suppliers don't do it because either they don't have a program, they don't see the incentive, it's very time consuming, they maybe don't even know about it. And so what we've allowed our customers is invite their suppliers to load their data. They get to sign the terms so that we don't share their information, so that give them more confidence or trust. And then they get the aggregated report of their diversity spend. And then they can assign a portion of that based on revenue directly to their customers in TealBook. And it's like, it requires no resources. It's free. They can do it super fast. And our customers are starting to see like 70 to 150 to $300 million in additional spend because their suppliers are now either using TealBook to audit what they've done before, significantly improving their diverse spend report, or launching their own diversity program, which they've never done before. And now what we're seeing is those suppliers are starting to contact us to say, hey, I would like to buy licenses so I can use the data to launchpad my own diversity program and report my data to other customers, right? So they could use that data and that allows them to increase competitiveness because the companies who care about supplier diversity will choose suppliers by the fact that they're spending with small diverse businesses and they have access to that data.
Fantastic. This is amazing. It's amazing. And would you tell the women on the call if they qualify or are interested, how they register their businesses with you? Self-certified?
I mean, they should have a profile on TealBook. So we have over 5 million active profiles that we've created. We monitor about 12 million companies globally. And so you can go to tealbook.com. It's free. We don't charge suppliers to have a profile. It's already built. And that's really important because we need to deliver that data to our customers without depending on suppliers to come to it. But you can go to it, you can look at it, you can enhance, validate your record, you can edit information, you can include a slide deck if you want to make your profile more attractive or tell your story in a different way. And if you don't have a profile, which is probably unlikely if you do business with enterprise, but say you don't have a profile, you can just sign up and with your domain, it will start crawling and go get the information. So you have very little to do, but just make sure that the data is how you'd want it to be represented and then validate. If we've pulled some certificate, you can go and validate. All it does is the customer then knows that you've touched it, you validate it, they can validate it on their end to add that element of trust. And then that data becomes now basically validated through the entire community. So it's worth taking the time to do that, but it's free.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So Case Lane is asking a question here. People say women have a harder time raising money from external investors. What should women entrepreneurs be doing to prepare and set up for success?
Well, I'd say build relationship, like find the investors that early on, first of all, that invest at your stage. So if you're seed stage, go find investors that invest in seed stage, because a lot of investors will talk to you, because they want to know who you are and they can want to track you through their CRM, right? And they want to check the box that they've met companies. But if they're not at your stage, you're wasting time. And so find the investors that invest at your stage. Ideally have a thesis around your space. So if you're in services, or you are in tech, or you are maybe in healthcare, like it's different investors often that you'll go after, and start building relationship. Like have a first meeting where you're not raising capital. Just introduce yourself, what your vision is, the progress that you've made, and what's the investment thesis. If you have a good sense of what's happening in the market right now, that you can attach yourself, that shows growth, and what is it about today, like now is the right time, and what is it about you specifically. And so once you have that investment thesis, for us was, the eProcurement market is growing to reach $22 billion. The market intelligence market is looking to grow by $32 billion over the next 3 years. We're kind of a combination of the two. We are what Zoom Info is to the sales and marketing side, we are to the buy side. So then you're having it, without being your headline, you have something that investors can go like, oh, I know Zoom Info.
Relate to, sure.
With not just with COVID, but the failures in digital transformation in our space, and the fact that COVID now has, made the data gap acutely, aware that it's a huge problem in achieving digital procurement success. So that's the 5-6 bullets that will carry us through all the rounds of funding. If you have that really early, and you can even use the conversation with investors to say, like, is that the right investment thesis? Am I missing anything that you think is important? These are the milestones I'm looking to achieve. Are they the right milestones? What are the KPIs you would want to see by the time we're ready to go and raise capital? Like, let them tell you, because that's going to be indicators. Are we too early? What proof points do we need to come back? And then you can come back to them, even monthly, or put a newsletter together, or ask them, hey, would you mind checking in if I checked in with you once a quarter, just to give you an update? And most likely they'll say yes, if they're interested. If they're not interested, then move on. Go to someone that gets more excited about your business, and then make sure that you build that relationship, because it's so much about them building this trust. Are you coachable? Are you listening? Do you welcome feedback? And we work together? Like, are you doing the things that you say you're going to be doing? And by the time you say you're going to do, so that if I put money behind you, I have confidence that you actually, in fact, can execute. Those are the things that I would do very early on before you need money. The last thing you want to do is be in a bird in hand situation. It's really uncomfortable when you're about to run out of money, or you don't have capital to continue, and then you've got to take the terms that someone gives you. You don't want to be in that position, and it's hard. It's a hard balance, because I've been in that position. It's awful. The other thing I'd say is don't be shy to put your own term sheet together. My first rounds, I put my own term sheets. It's like, a lot of people like interested, like, oh, I would maybe put money at one point. As soon as I got one commitment, I put the term sheet, I put the valuation, I say, hey, we're launching a round. We already have X amount committed. Are you in? And then it forced people to make a decision. And if they don't want to participate, they won't participate. And then you kind of get the other one excited, and then you can actually put a round together to give them more confidence that we're not going to close the first closing until we reach 500,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, that base amount, so that they know that they're not the only person giving you a check, that you need X amount of dollars to operate for the next, and to hit the next milestones, but you want to raise a bit more than that because you want to give yourself more runway. So that's typically a good place to be. And normally I wouldn't raise more than 25% of the value of the company in each round. So that gives you a sense based on, it may be your pre-revenue, or my kids are back from soccer. It can be pre-revenue, but it's really, not being overzealous sometimes. Like, I hear these big valuation, and, be appropriate, let them guide you. How much money do you really need? And then don't dilute more. Maybe you can stretch to 30%, but you're going to need room to have employee options. So if you do 20% plus 10% options, you're diluting by 30%. That should be your maximum dilution per round. So just to give you a sense, and if you need $1 million, your valuation should be roughly $4 million.
Okay. Very, very good. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Speaking of your kids, unless there are other questions, I don't see more right now. So go ahead and add them if you want, guys. How do you balance work and life? You have 3 girls, you're running 2 businesses. I mean, how do you do that?
Well, so I don't run 2 businesses. I want to provide clarity. I own a consulting business that I don't operate anymore. So I'm just more I'm obviously on the board. I provide governance and the resources for that company to continue being successful, but I'm fully dedicated to TealBook. I'd say I didn't have much balance until probably a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
Very unbalanced, kind of unhealthy. Like my obsession was my business. And so of course, spend time with my kids and go on vacation if I could, but I was never on vacation. Like I would take a picture of my kids and they'll be like, "You're not on your email." No, I'm not on my email. Message. I was never really checking out. 2 years ago, my husband booked a house in a small island in the Bahamas for 2 weeks. And I was just hiring our chief revenue and strategy officer. And I was like, oh, I can't leave for 2 weeks. And my husband was like, too bad, you're leaving for 2 weeks. And then having this person coming in actually gave him the opportunity to kind of hit the ground running without me over him, and allowed to build trust and allowed him to find his way. And I came back from that 2 weeks. The first week was hard to disconnect. After the second week, I felt like myself again. Like I was laughing, I was taking my time, I was in the moment, and I hadn't done that in a couple of years. And I came back really inspired. I came back much more strategic, my head out of the weeds. And then I realized the importance, I realized the importance of delegating and finding the right people. If you hire the right people and you're enabling them, then suddenly you're also empowering them to make decisions that you don't have to be involved all the time. Like if they need you, they can come to you. But the role that I see, one of my board member, Donna, mentioned, like you're the snow plow, and all the cars behind you on the highway or behind you, if you stop driving the snow plow to get back in the car to drive, you're stopping everybody. Right? If you get off the highway to do a detour, you're getting everybody off the highway. And so that analogy is so important. And I remind myself when I feel compelled to dive back in to make sure that I stay out of it. And sometimes I have to sleep on a message or think about something, or use it in a one-on-one format with my executive team to know these are things I have in my mind. Can we talk about in a one-on-one? And I have a G-Doc that they can see ahead of time so that I'm not bombarding them with questions or, ad hoc kind of requests or comments. Like I'm just literally using those one-on-one much more strategically, and they know that they have permission to make these decisions, that they're really, really empowered. And with that, I found balance with COVID too, much easier when you don't have to travel and be on a plane every week, to be home present. And that gave me, like in the last year and a half, and I'm saying this lightly because it's been so destructive and negative for a lot of people and businesses, but for me personally, it was a nice pause of not running like an airport in high heels all the time. Because that's how I see myself: running to the office, running to a meeting, running to a conference, running to a hotel, running in an airport, running to a soccer game, like running. And this year and a half, like I've got more anxiety about going back to that pace. And hopefully there's a more balanced way that we can go back to business that's not requiring to run around all the time. And so I'm fitter, I work out more, spend time with my kids, we eat dinner together every evening. Like what a nice gift in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Watch your children at that age grow.
It's really important, really, really important. All right. I think we are just about running out of time here. So I'm going to ask you the closing question. So of all the things you said today, what do you most want people to have learned from you?
I think nothing is easy. Like if it was easy, everybody would do it. I think when you're looking at challenges, trying to not get overwhelmed with all the things that you need to accomplish in the future, like look at what the challenge is today and what's the best way to overcome it, and then welcome feedback. I'm telling you, like, ask feedback, and it's something that you may think you are open to feedback, but ask yourself, are you really open to feedback? Are you giving the space for someone else to truly give you that feedback? And if they're giving you sort of a broad stroke feedback, make sure that they kind of go into like specifics, like what are specific examples, or what are the things that I could do better to enable you, or what are the things that are getting in your way? Or if you could improve 3 things about the company or my leadership style, what would it be? Like truly ask the question so that the person feels like they have the space. And you may not agree with all the feedback you get, but typically what I find is as you get feedback, suddenly there's a theme and there's something that kind of rises to the top. And that's the one thing I want to focus on the most. And it could be personally, it could be through the team, it could be in the business. But I think that that's, I like to hear good things about, working at TealBook or our product, but I want to hear the things that we could do better. Right. And so with that, I think it's the only way that you can grow and improve and build a better business and stay sane through it.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And I think you have to have a sense of security in yourself or confidence in yourself to be able to really listen and hear.
If you're in business, you've got a certain amount of confidence in yourself, right? So I think you're more than halfway there. And the rest, if you want to be successful, you have to let go.
Yeah.
You have to hire really good people and trust them. And if they're not the right people, change them. It's not going to kill your business. Like, just make the change. The faster you do it, the easier it's going to get, even though it seems like a huge obstacle in the moment. And find that voice, like, trust your instincts. Usually, your business best. You've been in it. You've built it with your sweat and tears and laughter and, all the things. So
yeah.
you know your business and you know the right decisions for your business more. Like, don't look for answers from other people. Look for feedback, but the answers you ultimately have to make. You have to make the decisions for yourself.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I've learned so much from you today. I really have. Okay. How about actions you want us to take? Do you have some top actions we should take leaving this call?
Oh God. Well, it depends on where you are, I think, in your journey. I'd say some of the things that helped me is write down the things, like initially early in my career, writing down the things that I love, the things that I wanted to avoid. Sort of a good way to frame what you want. And I'm a huge believer, if you put it into the universe, it happens. So it's the same with your goals, like what you're looking to achieve. What's the end game for you is important to know as well, so that you're putting something out there that's possible, right? Like, I'm putting out there that our company is a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm not limiting the universe to tell us that we're a $50 million company. No, 50 million, we've passed that in our last valuation, right? Like, we want to get to that $1 billion value. So I think having those goals and writing down and make them achievable, but make them also aspirational, so that it's not about limiting yourself. So, take the moment, take the time to do that. It's important for your business. It's important for yourself.
Very good. Very good. You've been amazing. This has been one of the fastest interviews I've had because I'm so engaged in what you're saying. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you again for doing it. Wish you the very best of luck with your business. I just want to let everybody know, on July 30th, again, we have our networking session. I want to thank Jan Peary and the YWCA, all of the attendees, our shareholders, for being here today. Pardon me. We have some tools on our website for you to be able to see how you look in cyberspace. Please go take advantage of that. You also can download our Google Chrome extension, and you can see the businesses that are owned or led by women as you shop on Google using our Google Chrome extension. We're looking for sponsors for this program if you have an interest. And please do like and share our social media pages with others, and let everybody know about this broadcast every Friday at 10 Central. We're going to take August off, but we'll be back in the fall. Anything else you'd like to say, Stephany?
No, thank you so much for allowing me to share my experience.
Oh, thank you for being here. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. And remember, purse power, we have it. Let's use it. Thanks, Stephany. Okay, have a good vacation.
Bye.
Bye.